Dear students, welcome to our today lecture. In our today lecture, we are going to discuss about the production function, and then we discuss that there are three basically return to scale. One is increasing return to scale, and decreasing return to scale, and constant return to scale. Now let's about discuss about what is mean by a production function. Basically, production function shows the relationship between input and output, and we can write it as mathematically like here y equals to function of capital and labor. So y is representing the output, k is capital, and l is labor. So these two are input and y is the output. So basically production function shows how much output the economy can produce from k unit of capital and l unit of labor. So this is the basic definition of the production function, that production function shows the relationship between input and output when capital or technology is fixed. So now let's talk about that there are three cases of return to scale. Now let's discuss them one by one. Before that, we have to discuss about the definition of capital and labor. Capital includes all the tools, machines, and structure used in production. And labor is the physical and mental efforts that are used in the production process. So here we have three return to scale. First one is constant return to scale. Second one is increasing return to scale. And the third one is decreasing return to scale. Constant return to scale means if you increase your input by 10% and your output also increase by 10%, then this specific production function is called constant return to scale. When input and output both are changing by same percentage, then that particular production function is called constant return to scale. And when output increases more than the input, that production function is called increasing return to scale. And when input increases more but there is less change in output, that production function is called decreasing return to scale. For example, in case of increasing return to scale, you increase your input by 5% and your output increases by 10%. So your output increased by more percent as compared to the input. So that particular production function is called increasing return to scale. And in case of decreasing return to scale, for example, if you increase your input by 5% and your output increases by less than 5%, it may be 4%, 3%, but less than 5%, then that production function is called decreasing return to scale. So now let's discuss through mathematical approach that how can we determine that any given production function is increasing, decreasing, or constant return to scale. So here we have a production function. Production function is the relationship between input and output. We have two input, capital and labor, and they are in square root form. So what we have to do in any case, when we have a equation and we have to solve out that whether it is a increasing, decreasing, or constant return to scale, we simply have to take any constant number and then we have to multiply that constant number with both of these two factors of production. Like here I have taken z as a constant number and I have multiplied that constant number with both of these two inputs. After multiplying these two inputs, as we know that according to square root rule, when two terms are similar and they are under the square root, we can multiply them. So we simply multiply z with z and it becomes z square. And as they are in multiple form, we can write it separately in a separate square root. So when we take the square root of z, as we know that square root has power 1 by 2, so this square and square root will be cancelled out when we have z, and the term capital output here in as remain in the square root. So as you can see that we multiply these two input by a constant number z, and we will and when we solve it we still have same as is z. So when we multiply any constant number and after solving it remains as it is, so that production function is called constant return to scale. Now take another example for decreasing return to scale. In this case, we have both of two input and they are again in square root form, but they are not multiplying with each other. This time they are adding with each other. So the first step is that we have to take any constant number and we have to multiply that constant number with both of these two input. Like here I have taken z as a constant number and I have multiplied z with k, and also I have multiplied z with l. So we have z before plus and after plus we can take z as common. So I have taken z as common. So when I take z here from common, under root k remain here in from these two terms, and when I have taken z common from here, then under root l remain here from this term. So at the end you can see that I have multiplied these input by a z, and at that moment his power is 1, but after solving his power decreases, it is now 1 by 2, or we can say that its power is 0.5. So when this is the case, we have multiply any constant number with this function, and after solving it power decreases from original position, then it means that production function is decreasing return to scale. I am taking a z, you can take any constant number like 5, 10, 20, but the procedure is same and you will get also the same results. So now we have another example. In this case we have two input, sorry, capital and labor, and similarly we have to multiply these two input with any constant number. As I am taking z in my previous examples, so in this example I have also taken z as a constant number and I have multiplied this z with both of these two input. So when I open this bracket, so square with both of these two term in this and in this, so it will become z square, k square plus z square and l square, and we have z square before this plus sign and after this plus sign, so we can take z square as common. So when we take z square common from this term, k square will remain here, and from this term l square will remain. So after solving we have z square, but when we at the start we multiply this term with z, at that time its power is 1, but after solving its power increases from 1 to 2, so it's mean that particular production function is exhibit increasing return to scale. So it means that when you increase by input by 10%, your output increases by more than 10%. It may be 11%, 20% or 30%.